in the second part of our little foray into the existence of God, which is part of the bigger part of know what you believe and why what you believe. And we're doing this not just for Sunday school class, but also for those out there who, as I said last week, put out a challenge on Facebook that there is absolutely no evidence for the existence of God whatsoever. Was the challenge. It was more of a statement than a challenge, but I took it as a challenge. And I thought we'd go over this, which is part of the series we're doing. So last week we went over the argument, and once again, not arguments in philosophy are not argumentative, they're just a postulation, a best case. This is what I hold, and here's the reasons why, and I present it to you for consideration and debate. That's what an argument is. Not that I really know the other, because once my wife and I got married 42 years ago, there was never an argument.
No lie.
Every day the first year.
Yes,
Every
very loud discussion.
Yeah, I had all the answers.
It's not an argument, she's just letting you know you're wrong.
Yeah, let's not go there. Anyway, so the argument for the existence of God, based on my little thingy, who can give me a plain Jane explanation of the cosmological argument for the existence of God? In simple terms. Bueller?
Is that the one we were discussing whether God's in time or out of time?
Not really.
Okay.
You were onto something, but that's not part of it.
God existed before time and universe.
There you go. Right. So that's just something we're like teaching. It really doesn't have any relevance into any argument for the existence of God. What did Dave say? Who remember what Dave said? Which I forgot myself. But it was really good. What did Dave say? Now's your moment, Dave, to chime in.
Somebody tell me, please.
Your little summary thingy you had last week?
Well, you and I talked about that before, and I was thinking about it. So I kept thinking, the heavens declare the glory of God.
Okay.
So there seemed to be like some type of an insistence. So what I came up with, that little blurby thing I had, before there was something existing, there was someone insisting.
Before there was someone existing, something existing, the universe, time, matter, someone existed, a person existed. Why? Because although Plato, or I like to call him Plato, even though Plato is not a Christian, he captured thought well when he says, quote, "Now everything that becomes or is created must of necessity be created by some cause, for without a cause nothing can be created." Quote. Why? Because everything that has a beginning cannot make itself into being. Even if God had a beginning, he cannot poof himself into being. It would take something else to bring about that thing. So the problem is, well, who made God? Children love to ask that. Internet guys love to ask that one too, and they think it's so devastating, and it's non sequitur actually. Who made God? Well, that means there's something else before God that would make God if God had a beginning. And then if this had a beginning, there'd be something else. And we know the problem. You can't go back infinitely into reverse time, infinity. You can't. Don't make me explain it again. It just doesn't work. So something that is extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, something that's decisive and purposeful had to exist in order for everything else that has a beginning to exist. That was the argument. And personally, powerful, intelligent, purposeful, decisive, sounds like a person to me. Not a Nubius force. Use the force, Luke. So we went from that argument, and now we're on to the eye chart. And my favorite eye doctor's not here, so I won't harass her much. But the eye chart, why the eye chart? We'll get there. The design argument, the teleological argument. Yes, I know what Kant said, but we're not going there right now. Call me at 2 in the morning and we'll talk about it. Anyways, we started with if you walked out in the middle of remotest Alaska and you looked down and you found one of those old style pocket watches with the hands moving and the intricate and the fine detail and the back was all fine and fancy, you wouldn't go, oh, look, metal, this stuff all happened to fall together at this spot all by itself with no one deciding or crafting or anything. It just fell by itself randomly. Yes, that's possible. You would say, no. Yes, I know about the watchmaker thingy, and we're not going into that right now. Anyways, the reason is because we talked about specified complexity versus complexity. A watch has specified complexity. And then we talked about the box of Cheerio alphabets being spilt on the floor. See how you remember this. You come down the stairs in the morning, even though your children and your husband are always ready on time by themselves without any of your interaction, but you come down the stairs and there's the alphabet cereals all over the floor. What would be an example of just complexity?
You might get the word cat, a 3-letter word, something small.
Okay, right. But there's just alphabet letters all over the floor, except my house, because the dogs would have ate them all up already. But that's complexity, just letters everywhere. What happens if you came down in the morning and there, in the midst of all those letters, spelled out with those letters was
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Right. And I'm not going to clean these up. That's an example of specified complexity. It's complexity with a purpose. Because the box is not going to fall over and spill out all those words in that order. It's just so improbable. And I'm not going to clean it up. The purpose is the one who arranged those letters sending you a message that they think because their brother knocked the cereal over and they didn't, they don't have to clean it up. And they're communicating a message to you. So that's called specified complexity. Right, so we then talked about, well, do we see specified complexity in nature? So wait a minute, Kevin, didn't you say at the end you were going to answer that question? Yes, I did say I was going to answer that question by Jeff, because Jeff said, how did we come to be? You meaning humans.
So you mean Darwin was right, but we are specified complexity?
What I would say is no.
Thank you. That way concrete.
I'm not a theistic evolutionist. We're going to get to that. But how did we came to be? What does that have to do with specified complexity? Well, like we said, there's two ways to think about how we, us, came into being. There's either Darwinian evolution, random, unplanned, unguided, things happen, or, lack of a better word, creationist thinking, planned, carried out, guided by a person.
Intelligent design.
Intelligent design. I wasn't going to say that because sometimes in these debates, as soon as you say that, the conversation shuts down. Oh, you wackadoodles with your stupid intelligent design that has no real basis. Really? Discovery Institute. Go to their website. See if intelligence design is not a credible theory. I didn't say if it's valid. I said if it's credible. Is it constructed like a theory is constructed? Is it testable? Is there evidence for it? If so, it's not wackadoodle, just because religious people endorse it. But anyways, there's the Darwinian, unguided, random, and then there's creationist, which has specified complexity, irreducible complexity, and language. And you're saying, oh, Kevin, I am so excited I came this morning to hear these three things because I won't go to sleep unless you explain it. I'm glad you said that because I know guys like me, all nerdy, get excited about this stuff, and there's a personal reason for it because I went through 16 years of deep questioning about my faith, and this was part of it. But let's talk about still not letting go of specified complexity. Specified biological and astronomical complexity. Let's go over some. One, the universe. The universe has extremely narrow parameters. Anybody know any of the extremely narrow parameters of the universe?
We went over it last week.
We did?
The moon around the Earth serves a purpose, but it has to be in a certain orbit.
Okay.
The Earth has to be in a certain orbit or we won't exist.
Okay. The Goldilocks zone. Did you ever hear that? Everything seems to be that we're in the Goldilocks zone. This goes, but the universe, there's something called strong nuclear force constant. There's a weak nuclear force constant. There's a gravitational force constant. There's an electromagnetic force constant. There's a ratio of electron to proton mass. Oh, that should excite you. There's expansion rate of the universe. There's the entropy level of the universe. There's mass density of the universe. There's average distance between stars and so on and so on. If just one of these little things were off by a little bit, that makes a massive difference. That's what I'm saying, specified complexity. This stuff is very complex because it takes a nerd guy who likes math, and they could get all excited when numbers go to the millionth or 50th place and all that stuff, and I'm like, are we going to get breakfast out of this deal? But for math people, it goes to something called the anthropic principle. Did anyone hear of the anthropic principle before?
Yeah.
Good. Can someone explain it?
I don't remember it very well.
Okay. You were doing so well.
Yeah. I've heard of it, I forgot.
There's also, our solar system has narrow parameters, like you said. There's the axial tilt of the Earth. There's the distance from the Earth to the Sun, the thickness of the Earth's crust. There's the gravitational interaction with the Moon, like you said. There's the gravity of the Earth and all. Well, the anthropic principle basically says the parameters for the existence of the universe, and especially life, is so very, very narrow that one little difference in the whole Jenga stack comes crumbling down. Remember that silly game,
Yeah.
right?
Pull
Where
it
you
out,
pull
put
the
it on
little
top.
thing out and you're the guy who knocks it all down. Well, that's what would happen if one of these tiny little things, for example,
So man says.
the oxygen ratio in our atmosphere, I think it's like 20%, right? My father thought that the airplanes, we pumped in pure oxygen. I said, no, Dad, that's called explosion. But, I mean, he would think that. But, you know, the ratio of oxygen is constant all the way to space. It's just
Pressure.
mostly nitrogen. But anyways, if the oxygen ratio was 25% instead of 20%, you'd have fires breaking out. If it was 15% instead of 20%, we would suffocate. Why? Well, that's for the biologists to figure. Also, if the gravity force was different by 1 part in 10 to the 40th power, the sun would not exist. Anthropic principle, all these things are so narrow. After you stack them all up, all these things, the probability that they just happen, all these complex things just happen to fit all together. Yes, I know about the metaverse and all that, but we won't go there right now. But come on, what is more likely? We just happen to be in the right place at the right time, or there was a purpose, a design to it. Go the other way, microscopically. I said before that, Darwin thought the cell was just jelly, just a glob of jelly, because he didn't have the instruments to look. But we know within the cell, there's all these little tiny machines, biological machines, doing specific functions, repairing things, scavenging things, folding DNA or RNA into a pattern, putting it through a machine to produce a protein, and all these things. It's like, he said, well, it just happened randomly. No, it looks like it was designed because it's so complex with specific things they're doing. It just looks like it's designed. One atheist says, even though the universe looks like it was designed, we have to remind ourselves that it wasn't. Maybe it looks designed because it was. You know, one tried to put out a picture, and he had these different cars, and he was saying, see, this shows that you don't need design theory for the universe. I'm sorry, but you know, those cars you put on your little picture ad for that, they were all designed by engineers with those things. You know, do you ever see the old pictures of guys, white shirt with a black tie, and they all had those slanted boards and those things that come over with the lines, and they're drawing lines of drafting. Did anybody else take drafting in high school? You did? Did you like it? You did?
I did.
Your arrows. I remember, make the arrows. Make the arrows. That wasn't my thing. And my dad taught drafting in high school. Yeah. Anyways, DNA. But here's something also. He talked about specified complexity, irreducible complexity in language. For something to work, there needs to be code. Even your body runs off of code. A computer won't work unless there's code. And you may not have this experience, but somewhere in my Dell, my laptops, every single time there's something that goes blah, and the thing just doesn't work right. And then I get down and I pray gently and kindly to my computer, and I ask for the divine intervention, and I look at my computer and touch it lovingly. So I had to buy a new computer once I lost my temper. But code. So if the idea is this little single thingy started in a something in a pool, and it just divided, and then it just kept multiplying, and eventually through eons of time, you get us. The problem is, even that little single thing, for it to do anything, it requires code first. You can't have it and then it evolves code. Code must be in place before the thing in order for the thing to do anything. In order for your body to operate, it needs code, DNA. This is called the problem of language. And lastly, irreducible complexity. This is where the eye chart comes in. The eyeball is like, there's this little bacteria, it's called the flagellum motor. It's a tail. Bacteria literally has a little tail, and it whips around, and this is how it propels itself at the biological level. And I was stupid because when they first presented this, I didn't know that we were talking about bacteria. And then I figured, wow, some people get really excited about bacteria. Okay, I guess that means God doesn't want me to be a doctor. But anyways, this little motor whips around on a little stator. And this is biological, not mechanic, not metal. And there's little things inside the stator of this bacteria. Well, what I'm getting at is, in evolution, you have one little thing, and it provides a benefit, and only then is it retained in the next generation, and from there, you get another thing that adds to it, and that benefit is how you eventually get a higher complex being over this being. Well, if all the parts of the little motor, if all the parts of the eye aren't there to begin with, there would be no benefit. So when we were evolving and we just got little globs, there was no reason there to be a benefit until it was fully operational. That's like saying your computer, your laptop computer, started out all by itself, totally unguided, with one little thing, and from there, it just happened to add everything else. No, it wouldn't work unless all the parts are already there in a specific way. Talking about the eyeball. And then add, for the eyeball to be a benefit, there had to be something in the brain that would decode what your eye sees. So what I'm saying is irreducible complexity. How did we get there from the single cell amoeba if there wasn't a design to do that in place? So, to me, the design argument represents the highest expression of scientific thinking as far as the existence of God. If the accusation is, you Christians are just emotional, spiritual weaklings who need a crutch, we are intellectual, we think with our mind, our brain, we don't just take things as they are, we think things out, and you Christians don't, what about this? There's scientific evidential evidence. We don't have to just believe because we're just believing. We believe for a very good reason. And I would put to you that these arguments are a better explanation of reality than just saying it all just happened by itself, unguided. And it happened to produce these amazing complex things with purposeful ends to them.
Takes almost more blind faith to be an atheist.
What'd you think, Jeff?
It takes more blind faith to be an atheist than to actually be a Christian and believe that we were created.
Does that offend you? I hope not, because I think it's realistic. If you define faith the way you define faith, which is not biblical faith, but clicking my heels together and just believing, my ruby slippers, Google it. If that's what you think faith is, then I don't think it's so far off to say your atheist faith could be blind faith. What happens if it is? Are you willing to take the opportunity to test what you believe? In speaking of the complexity of organisms, Alan Segridge says, the more one learns of biochemistry, the more unbelievable it becomes, unless there is some type of organizing principle, an architect for believers, end quote. Like Jeff says, what takes more blind faith? So let's try to finish up with the last one.
I get triggered when I see that. It reminds me of Catholic school.
I didn't chew off the end. I don't know how it got there. Not much good. But a ruler. A ruler. Let's try and figure out why I brought a ruler. Because I didn't have a little baby doll to bring. Let's talk about the moral argument. Anybody just kind of guess, following the cosmology, following a theological, what do you think the moral argument for the existence of God would say? Any just gut level thinking?
Moral argument of the existence?
Moral. Because there's actually called the argument for the existence of God from flavors. I said, what? One guy, my friend Phil, who's extremely smart, way smarter than me, he had a whole list of these, and the one that popped out to me, the argument from flavor. What? Ice cream? Anyways, yeah, the moral argument. Any guesses?
Now, if we take some clues from C.S. Lewis, it would be that this idea of right and wrong provides some type of substantiation for the meaning of the universe itself.
Right and wrong. So, what does culture used to say up until before critical theory jumped in? What in the 80s, 90s, what was it saying about right and wrong? Right and wrong is nothing more than what?
What you decided to be.
What you decided to be. Or the accusation goes, you, Dave, are only a Christian because you grew up in a Christian home. Did you grow up in a Christian home?
I grew up in a heavy Catholic home, so
Okay.
in a way, yeah, the morality and the expectations were much like what we call a Christian home. But it wasn't, a Baptist Christian home.
Right, but see, you're only religious because you grew up in a religious home. We go the accusation. Cultures, people think right and wrong is just a result of whatever culture you're in. For example, in some cultures, rape is seen as something horrific and abusive. Other cultures, and in other times, like Roman times, rape was considered a good. It's used as necessary, and it teaches things. Literally, in Roman times, young boys could be raped by another man to teach him how to be a man. That's how the Roman culture thought. So, we got saying in Eastern Europe, he would get off the plane and, or he knew some guy got off the plane. The minute he got off the plane, he turned around and just punched his wife and kicked her. The police came up and the police said, "What are you doing?" "This is my wife." "Oh, okay, sir." Because in that country, that was considered right. Try that in another country. If I try that with my wife, my head would be on crooked, right? Because she believes in putting right and wrong into physical force. But anyways, objective morals says no matter where you are at whatever time, it's right or it's wrong. It doesn't matter if the whole world tells you it's right and you're the lone voice saying, "This is not right." That's called objective morals. Can you think of any examples out of the Bible where this was put into play? Where the whole bunch of people were doing what they were told, and only a couple guys says, "We ain't doing that because it's wrong. We don't care what you say, it's still wrong." Can you think of any examples? 3 guys. Babylon.
Sodom and Gomorrah, they were doing some weird
Well,
stuff there.
I
But
was thinking Daniel.
Shadrach, Meshach,
Yeah, right. The whole culture there was worshiping, and they said, "No, we will not," because it's wrong, regardless if all you say is right. So this can sometimes go to called relativism. The church likes to use that phrase about relativistic thinking. It's technically objective, subjective, but absolutes and relativism, is the easier way to put it, I think, and probably a way that you're used to. But the claim that morals are all relative, not some, but everything is relativistic. You think it's right, I think it's wrong, well, we're both correct. This country says it's wrong, but this country says it's right. Well, they're both correct. That's relativistic thinking. The problem is the relativist is saying, you either accept my view of right and wrong, relativism, or you're wrong. That's not relativism. That's absolutism or objectiveness. They're saying it's my way or the highway. Or I like to say, when they say, the relativist says, there is no absolutes in right and wrong, and that's true absolutely. You, shut up. But when I talked earlier about the gut, what does your gut say? There was a reason for that. Let's try out some relativistic thinking and see what you would say. See what you would say. Do you still agree that morals are purely relativistic? Let's say I'm starting a new perfume line, hypothetically, I'm not going to. New perfume line or something like that. Well, to do this line, to develop it, it requires that I test it. And I've chosen little puppies I find on the street. But the process creates immense pain and suffering on the animal it's tested on. Oh, by the way, I've heard this. Because it causes pain on the puppies I'm testing my new thing on, and they scream, we cut their throat boxes so we can't hear them scream anymore. So literally the animal is like this. But remember, it's all relative. So to me, that's okay. That's not wrong. It's just my preference. What's right and wrong? Does your gut say, no? No? Let's try another one. I think our lives should follow our education, another hypothetical one. So because I was taught in my school, and I was, that Darwinian evolution is the only game in town, that only those crackpots believe in intelligent line, so Darwinian evolution is it, I'm going to take my education training, survival of the fittest, survival of the strongest, and I'm going to put it into force. And because my kids need a better college opportunity, I'm just going to shoot your kids. Because that's right to me. It provides for my kids. It's not a preference. It's my relative thinking.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest. Oh, and there's the other one, my favorite one. Because in college, the elite is taught, well, everyone's taught, but especially elite, that they're nothing more than an evolved animal. So when they go to Wall Street and raid your retirement fund, and you don't get nothing for the rest of your life, that's not wrong, because to them it's right. Are you still going to say all morals are relative? Doesn't your gut scream out? I said once this guy was giving a talk like this, and an atheist came up to him and was challenging his position on morals, and he says, no, you're wrong. So the guy said, well, let's say I took a baby, a little innocent baby, and I just started to chop it up in front of you. Would you say it's just a preference? It's just your idea what's wrong and my idea is wrong is different? Or would something else? And the atheist said, well, I wouldn't say it was wrong, but I wouldn't like it. And the guy said, even you cannot go to the correct conclusion of what you believe about morals. Even you, because something inside of you screamed out and says, this is wrong. When we abuse another person for our selfish gains, when we violate another person, how can we say it's just individuals' decisions and what morals? Maybe there's something higher, greater, more impetus that cries out that this is wrong. That's what the moral argument says. Because if morals, right and wrong, is universal, no matter where you are and who says what, if you're the lone voice, it's still right or wrong, then the source of morals would have to transcend the culture, be above the culture. If morals are authoritative in all places and all times, no matter what the government says, no matter what the people in power says, no matter what the mob says, then there has to be something that's authoritative in all places, in all times. All places, not some places, but all places. The source of morals must also have the authority and power to carry out that authority and power. I cannot think of any human being or source throughout history that fulfills all those requirements. Yes, there's been many a dictator, a tyrant, who, like for example, North Korea now, who tells their people what's right and wrong, and you may not question, and they certainly have power, but in the end, we say, this is not right, what he's doing, the starvation, the abuse. When you look at a picture from space of North Korea and South Korea, you see a distinct difference. Google it. There is right and there's wrong that goes beyond just us humans. What we're saying with the moral argument is that there has to be a transcendent, authoritative source that's objectively true. It's not just you and I huddling together in a back corner and saying, this is right, and if you want to be a part of us, you have to agree to this. No dissenters allowed. There has to be something that goes beyond it all that says this is wrong. This is wrong. How do you explain the presence of real, tangible, universal right and wrongs? Is it just an illusion? Is it just us putting things together in a nice, efficient way? We like to say in Hitler's Germany, the trains ran on time. Hitler's Germany was very efficient for a while. Extremely efficient. Things worked well. It's called utilitarianism. Would you say that it was right, though, to the Jews, to the gypsies, to the homosexuals, to the Jehovah's Witnesses, to the Christians, the ones who didn't buckle under? They went to concentration camps. When you saw what he did in those concentrations, and worse, what the people did with him, doesn't something inside of you cry out that this is wrong? I don't care what you say, this is wrong. That's your opinion. No, it goes beyond that. This is wrong. That, in essence, is the moral argument. The standard is not, I can't take the standard of the ruler, I think I should use this side, and bend it any way I want and say that's the standard. No, there is an ultimate, transcendent, authoritative standard of what right and wrong is. So, where does that leave us in the few minutes left? And the
Still hung
end.
up on the puppy thing. I want to go kill somebody.
Why, Jeff? Why?
Because I just hate that.
But look at all the benefit it brings to all the people who would buy this product. Right? So the suffering of a few 100,000 puppies, what's that compared to? I mean, they were out in the street anyways. They didn't mean anything to anybody.
Wrong. Your statement is incorrect.
Widely done.
They do mean something.
What?
Sadly enough, it's done more widely than you think.
It is done. But there's something inside of us that cries out, screams out. When we find of someone abused for years by their own parents, by their own father, doesn't something inside of you get angry? This is not what a father is to be. I know personally of a family like that. It was secret until it came out. This is not what a father is to be. It's just something at the gut level says, I am not supposed to harm the one that is my child. I am supposed to care for them. Okay, sure, you're a father. And as a father, you are required to harass and tease your children. That's just part of the code. I know daughters don't understand this, but that's how a father says, I love you. We harass you. But deep down, we're to care for you and protect you and want the best for you. We don't want you to marry some dirtbag. We want you to marry somebody who treats you like gold. Because there's something deep down that says this is right. So we cover the cosmological, the theological, the moral argument. There is many more of these out there. And what I'm saying is if you take them all together and look at them, where does that take you? If your atheism is so sure, if you think we're just a bunch of stupid hillbilly dimwits, have you considered that there might be an intellectual scientific reasons for the existence of God? Are you willing to have an open mind and test your own faith structure? You want me to do that? Will you do that? I challenge you to do that. Any last comments? Ideas? Anger? Passion? Still on the puppy thing? Maybe that's unfair, but it's realistic. It happens. Father, we thank you. This is not so easy thing, one of those tough things. Because in church, especially in Christmas, we like everything to be happy and joyful. But the reality is, the world is not happy and joyful. The world is messed up, mean, cruel, and wrong. And unless there is something, someone to come and untie all the knots and straighten the cord out, then what good is life? What hope do we have? The best we can hope for is to die in our sleep. Is that what we were made for? No, you offer something better. Thank you. Amen.